I'm going to show you guys the best builds for rogues, depending on where you are in the game. If you're in the early game, you're definitely going to want to place spider cocoons and groves, because the rogue gets trophies for each enemy that it kills, and then gets its items at the end of loops. So you're just going to want to kill as many enemies as possible. Groves spawn enemies every 2 days, whereas cemeteries every 3 days, so groves are better than cemeteries for that reason. Spider cocoons are the best, because they spawn a spider once per day, and they can spawn on multiple tiles that they're adjacent to. So if you're fighting enough battles, taking long enough to go around a loop, a spider cocoon can fill a lot of tiles with 4 enemies each. Also, if you feel like you are strong enough, tacking on a vampire mansion for a 5th enemy per battle is always nice. And then you won't have any gold cards early game, but late game, you'll always want the ancestral crypt or the arsenal. You'll get the arsenal in the middle game. Arsenal is actually really good for the rogue. Out of all the classes, rogue benefits the most from the arsenal, because the extra item that the rogue gets gives a magic shield, which is equivalent to getting healed, because at the beginning of each battle you have the shield that can absorb 100, 200, 300, whatever HP, and that's basically the same effect as just getting healed that much every single battle. So arsenal is honestly the best for the rogue until the very late game, and then once you're in like late game, you've played a lot and everything, and especially once you got supply items and stuff, it's possible that the ancestral crypt would be better, just because if you combo with groves and cemeteries and vampire mansions, you can just get so much HP, it's insane. And then you heal HP on every loop, and that could eventually, it could scale higher than the arsenal's extra item could. But, you know, it's debatable. They're both really good. So as for these ones, in the early game, obviously, rocks are your best friend. Meadows are okay. Later on, forests and rivers are the best for rogue and warrior too. But for rogue, you're just going to want max attack speed. You're going to try to only place thickets, and you're going to try to run rivers around them so that you can get hopefully 400 to 500% attack speed. You might as well, with rogue, just drain your stamina bar and then have it fill. That'll do more DPS than not doing that. Also, you can combine the storm temple with the forests in order to get some magic damage too. So in the mid game and early game, as soon as you get the storm temple, place a storm temple at the top left and bottom right, or top right, bottom left. And along the outside of the map, place your forests, and then on the inner parts, place river and then thickets. This will get you hopefully up to 50 magic damage on top of your attack speed, which will help you get through the first 20 loops or so much more easily. It's very, very helpful. Suburbs are okay, but with rogue, I'd honestly just go attack speed unless there is a trait in particular that you really hope you want to get. As for these, early game, vampire mansion, late game, yeah, just because you can have another enemy to kill per tile. Battlefields are good early game, maybe, but just because of free trophies without having to fight for it too hard. Everything else, a bookery maybe. Road lantern's good early for the rogue, just to keep enemies from getting too many enemies on one tile and stuff. And these ones, I think they're not very good. Villages are okay. So as for cards, that's cards. I guess early treasure if you're farming resources, but that's pretty much it for cards for the rogue. It's pretty much the same as the warrior. I'd say that's about how the warrior should be. Before I go to actual items that you equip, like in the loop, I really quick want to go to supply. So I have a lot of stuff. I've played a long time, and then I cheated a bunch for videos. So you're not going to have items like this. But I do want you to know which items are best for the rogue, so that you can craft for those and you can equip those. So for the rogue has innate vampirism. Count's chair increases vampirism by 1% if you already have it. So these will automatically kick in even from the very beginning of your loop with the rogue. Count's chairs are amazing on rogue. Lifesteal will make the rogue go further and further and further without dying. Obviously, you're not going to have infinite Count's chairs until you've already beaten the game and are bored anyway. But every time you see a Count's chair, throw it on. Every time you can craft something, craft furniture. Try to get more Count's chairs, up to around 50 or so. Once you're at 50% lifesteal, that's like good enough. You can do more if you want, assuming you ever even get to that point. And then antique shelves are extremely nice if you're on Chapter 4. If you're on Chapter 4, they give +1 max HP for every whole resource gained. And you just want to put on as many of those as possible if you're on Chapter 4, because if you have enough of these, you can have like hundreds of thousands of HP, actually. Theoretically, if you had like 150 of these, you'd have like 100,000 HP by loop level 30, and it'd be insane. And then combining antique shelves with alchemist shelves is nice, because then you get potions heal percentage of HP, and it just gets crazy. Farmer's scythe is extremely nice on the rogue. because the Farmer's Scythe makes 3% of your damage also do all damage. Or, I don't know if it adds or it does whatever, but make sure your damage do all damage. So you're just going to do more damage. And since you're going to be farming tiles with 4 enemies in them each, it's going to help you a lot. And if you have vampirism, it's just going to make you heal more per attack. So Farmer's Scythes are good. If you ever happen to get any Farmer's Scythes, equip them. I wouldn't necessarily craft tools to try to get them, just because the furniture is so much better to craft. But if you have the mats and you want to, you can go ahead and craft 4 Farmer's Scythes. They are okay. Some people really like the kitchen's knife and combining it with cheese and bread and stuff, which will give you a plus 1% base HP for every food item. Doesn't scale very good late, but you can do it. Also, a lot of people talk about Exquisite Mirror. If you put on enough of these, you can be immune to magic damage. If you have them, you might as well throw on enough for that. I didn't mention that in one of my other videos, but I didn't realize that is true. That is not bad. Rare book, throw one of those on if you have one. You only put one, but you might as well put one. Plus 1 defense every card in your hand. It's just free defense. Other than that, there's one other item in here. The Herbalist Sickle. If you have the item slots, if you don't have the item slots, throw down some Mud Huts. Mud Huts are almost free, and you can get more item slots until you have the map filled. But if you have item slots, you might as well throw on your Herbalist Sickles to make the potions heal more. If you're doing one of the builds where you get a lot of HP, and you get to where your potions heal for like 20%, that's going to heal you for a lot of HP every loop because you get 4 potions per loop. So that one's also nice because it scales. It scales later on in the game and everything. And whenever I'm making these builds, I always try to think of scaling because my focus is how many loops can you go to? Like, can you make it to 30, 40, 50? You know, like, what are the best ones for going the whole way? So that's it for items and cards. So now let's get into a loop. So here we are in a loop. If you're going to do the Burned Forest strat, you're going to want to place a Storm Temple on each corner. You're going to want to run Burned Forest down here using your Forest card and save your Thickets for the inner parts. It's best to run a river along, like, start on a side like this, run the river along like that, up like this. Rivers do stack, so this thicket here on the corner, or not corner, but the end of this, has 3 rivers next to it. All 3 of those rivers count towards the bonus, so instead of giving 2, it gives, like, 6, or I don't know if it's, some guy said it multiplies. I don't know if that's true or not. So your multiplies or adds. And then run up, try to do the same thing on the other side, or run it around, find some way like that. But you're going to want something like this. That'll give you a lot of magic damage for free. Then here's something like what the map would be like if you're throwing down everything. I was throwing down graveyards, groves, whatever. But spider cocoons help a lot. Lots of free trophies and all that. As for actual gear and what stats you want. Now, obviously, damage defense are key, as always. Anytime you can get damage, it's good. Rogue doesn't have a shield, so he doesn't get free defense, but sometimes items will have defense, and if they do, then you take it if possible. There's some defense if it makes sense. One of the problems with Rogue is that once you start getting far enough along and filling in enough of the road, you'll always get yellow or orange items, and yellow or orange items sometimes just suck. And the reason being, the more stats that are split, the lower each of those stats will be. So, like, gray will always have more of one stat than anything else ever could generally for the same level. But if you have choice of stats, damage, great. Vampirism, I don't think, you can't get vampirism on Rogue. That's right, you can't get vampirism on Rogue. Damage is great. Magic damage is huge. Evasion is bad. Okay, and the reason evasion is bad is every time you evade, it drains your stamina. That doesn't mean you should avoid evasion, but stacking up to like 50% evasion is not going to help as much as you think it would because it'll decrease your attack output. Alternatively, finding something with counter is really nice. Counter will just increase your overall DPS, and that will help you a lot as Rogue. Damage to all, again, is nice. Attack speed's nice, but if you have Forest and Rivers unlocked, you'll have plenty of attack speed if you're at that point. Critical damage or critical chance? That's the million-dollar question as a Rogue. So, in my opinion, getting at least one item with critical damage chance is big, because increasing that chance of critical from 10 to 20 or all the way up to 30 or so will really help you to get that more often, whereas opposed to 10%, it's going to be pretty infrequent. And it's just, I feel like it's going to give more. I haven't done the hard numbers on it, but from just playing video games a lot, I feel like the percentage chance of crit will go further than the actual hard damage increase on crit. Doesn't mean that you can't get it. Honestly, you won't have much choice as a Rogue. Once you get far enough along, you just get these orange and yellow items, and they just have so many stats thrown onto them that it's hard to even separate the stats, because it's just going to be, it's really a Rogue. Once you get later on, it's kind of like just throw on the highest level thing to a certain extent. So, and here's the amulet. If you have the arsenal, the magic HP is nice since the Rogue's vampirism is very low without supply items. So if you're early game, the arsenal is way better honestly, just because you don't have vampirism for crap. You can't get regen. Once you get later on, if you have enough counts chairs on, then you can think about using things like the Ancestral Crypt instead of the Arsenal. But early game, the magic HP is basically the equivalent of your regen. The goal of the rogue is to kill the enemy before your magic HP shield drops. And then later on, once you have counts chairs and have some more vampirism, then you can kind of just face tank it like the warrior does. Now let's take a look at traits. I turned some cheats on so we can grab all the traits real fast that I have. So, Surveyor, it's not good with anybody. It's only if there's nothing better to get. If you have to get it, you're going to feel real sad. Awakened Fragment's really nice if you're late game and you have a bunch of those antique shelves, because you'll have a 2% chance to hold resources. You can farm HP. That one's really nice late game. Smokescreen. After losing 20% of his max HP in battle, the hero will evade all attacks for 2 seconds. Not really that helpful, honestly. It's actually not that helpful. I would not recommend unless there's nothing better to pick on your set. Picky. Lowers the quantity of items received on the camp tile by 3. So you get 3 less items every loop, while increasing the quality of exchange for trophies. If you're in the early game, this one might not be bad, because you'll struggle to even get to like loop 10. Once you're in the mid to late game, this one falls off because you'll get to the point where all the tiles are mostly filled and you'll be getting orange and yellow items every loop anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But early to mid game, it could be a good pickup. Marauder, fighting against 3 or more enemies will grant you an additional trophy. Again, early game might be good. Late game kind of feels completely useless. Post-mortem toll. 30% chance to get a random basic resource chunk while killing an enemy is only good late game. On chapter 4, because if you have ancient shelves, it'll help you farm more HP. Other than that, I'd rather get things. It's better to get things that make you do more damage, because the rogue has to kill things before the rogue gets killed, or else the rogue dies. Treasure Hunter, 5% chance for a chest to spawn on top of a killed enemy. I think this helps you farm more trophies, if I'm right. I'm not 100% sure on that. So it's an okay pickup if there's nothing better, but it's not the best thing ever on rogue, but it's okay. Fuss. The hero receives 7% less damage for every enemy starting after the second enemy. It's not the worst. If you're farming a lot of spiders and stuff, and there's always 4 enemies on every tile, early to mid game, it can be pretty good actually. It's a decent one. I mean, it's better than some of these other ones. So if it's in the 3, you could you consider getting it. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's decent. Bottomless bottle, 40% chance not to spend a healing potion upon usage. This one's really good for the rogue, because the rogue does not have much self-healing early mid game, since he can't stack vampirism or regen. So potions might be your best bet to stay alive. Put on some of those alchemist shelves in your supply items if you happen to get any or craft any. And then try to get as many potions as you can. Put on the herbalist sickles to make them heal more, and it'll help you sustain and last longer as the rogue and be able to go further. Pickpocket, 50% chance to steal a resource shard from an enemy while countering. Pretty much useless, because the way it works, since you're always getting orange items and stuff late game as a rogue, you're going to struggle to even get 20% counter. You're not going to get that many resources, but if you have the Ancestral Crypt and all that, and you're farming HP from, or not the Ancestral Crypt, if you have a bunch of antique shelves, it may be worth considering getting, just because you can farm more HP, but it's not really that good. Lightning Fast, hero has a 20% chance to perform a quick 3-hit combo with each hit dealing 50% damage. Now this one's pretty good, just because it overall increases your damage output. And as the rogue, all you want is to do as much damage as possible before your HP shield breaks, so you don't have to lose HP in a battle. Highly recommend Lightning Fast. It's a decent one. Master Fencing, 10% chance to simultaneously attack 2 targets. Again, increases your DPS, so this is a good one. This is a pretty darn good one. Nothing is Sacred, plus 3 HP after a kill. This one is not very good. Early game, it's decent, okay, just because it'll help you sustain. Once you get later on, it's not going to do much for you, but it's honestly bad. But if you have nothing better to get, then I guess go ahead and grab it. Lethal Weakness. Every 10% of lost HP gives you a 0.5% chance to instantly deal 1000% damage. Sounds nice because it increases your DPS, but it's a 0.5% chance, which is extremely, extremely low. So honestly, I would count this one as bad, because the actual overall DPS increase you're going to see from this is almost non-existent. It's going to be so little, it's just marginal. So honestly, just bad. Bad to average at best, in my opinion. This one, any class can get Resurrection Charge. If you have Resurrections, that one's nice. You can resurrect again. It's average to good. Supplies, that's just if you want to put resources away, just because you're farming resources. Early game, it's an okay one to get. If you're just trying to farm resources and you're afraid you're going to die, you can put some away every loop. Skilled Architect will help you level up faster. So in a normal playthrough, Skilled Architect's actually a pretty decent one to get if you can get it as one of your first maybe 3 traits, because it'll basically buy another trait or 2 pretty fast. by whenever you place a building. So that one's pretty good actually, but only if you get it early on. Card sharp, 10% chance to keep the card after placing its tile. Overall, it's an okay card, but as rogue, it's like you'd much rather just get DPS whenever possible. But if there's nothing better, it's okay. But only if you get it early. Once you get later on, you already placed so many cards. Don't even bother with it. Old Scars. Max HP is increased by 1 for each received trophy. Hands down, this is the best trait that you can get on Rogue. If you're trying to push the number of loops that you can go to early, it might be worth starting and just going until you hit your first level or two. And if you don't get Old Scars, just restart. Because Old Scars will take you so much further than any other trait. Especially once you have most of the tiles filled, you'll be getting hundreds of max HP per loop. Maybe not hundreds, but you'll be getting like close to 100 max HP per loop. So for the rogue, that could be very helpful. Child of the Forest. A rat wolf may come to your aid during battle. 75% chance. Honestly, I haven't played around with this one very much. On paper, it sounds good because it'll decrease the amount of damage that you take and increase your damage output. Gives it another target for the enemies to hit, which will decrease the chances they'll hit you. So honestly, I'd recommend this one as good, just for the fact of it's basically like getting a magic shield every battle whenever you get it, just because it'll decrease the amount of damage you take. So it's like free HP, free regen equivalent. So honestly, I think Old Scars and Child of the Forest are probably the best 2 traits the rogue can get. Everything else is secondary to these. And then after that, you're just going to go for DPS ones, except for Lethal Weakness, which in my opinion is absolutely terrible, but maybe better than Supplies, just because if you're trying to go far, just because it'll actually do something for you instead of Supplies. But so yeah, Old Scars, Child of the Forest, DPS, and then other things. It depends on how you're playing and where you are in the game. So that is it for traits. That is everything I can think to tell you about Rogue and how to play Rogue and the best ways to build the Rogue and what to do, how to place your tiles, on and on and on. So hopefully that helps you out with your Rogue gameplay. Obviously, there's a million different ways you can play the game. You don't have to stick exactly to this guide, obviously. Feel free to put whatever cards you want to do just for fun, and try out things just for fun. You don't have to be beholden to this guide, but these, in my opinion, are the best items, traits, stats, all that for the Rogue. And hopefully now you know the best Rogue builds or Loop Hero. If this video helped you, consider helping us by subscribing to our channel. Tap this button over here and hit the red subscribe button. Subscriptions help a lot, even if you never watch our videos again. Ha 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 ha!